he's kind of grown up in this community. You kind of see him be part of the church and then not.
No, he's never really been part of the church.
Okay.
So you walked into the church today.
Great
Yeah.
stuff.
He has come occasionally. His sister comes pretty regularly.
Is that Julie?
And she's been his sister for both sisters, all three of them. The other sister goes to Sunday Evening Church. Yeah.
Well, I have a praise. Like a week or so ago, I was doing some studying in a little cafe in Fresno, and God brought about a divine appointment. And that morning, I had chosen to wear a shirt that says I'm on a mission. It's from Ty Gibson and David Ashrick's Arise merchandise store. And I was thinking, man, I feel like I don't know if I'm ready to be on mission today. If someone asks me what my mission is, I don't know exactly what I'll say, but I said, God, I know if I share my faith, it'll grow my faith. So bring me someone I can share it with. And I ended up meeting this young adult, 28, young lady, who's Muslim. And she initiated conversation by asking me about my mustache. And so we just started chit-chatting. I actually think she was trying to convert me. And just, small talk, getting to know each other. And I tell her I'm a pastor, and she's like, oh, I've never heard of a Bible verse that says Jesus is God. Never heard of it. If you show me a Bible verse, I'll worship him right now.
Whoa.
And I knew she was being a little overzealous, but I was like, yeah, I know quite a few verses to do that. So I pulled open Philippians 3:10, I think 10 and 11, where it says that every knee will bow to Jesus, and then he's been given the name above all names. And I was like, is there anyone above God? And he's like, no. Only God. And he's like, well, Jesus here in the Christian Bible is identified as God, and the only one worthy of worship. And she's like, wow. I've never heard the Bible before. From all the Christian friends she asked, they never opened up a Bible to her. So I felt very honored to share that moment with her, and I screenshotted it on my iPad and sent it to her phone and highlighted the verse for her because she asked if she could have the verse. So I was pretty amazed.
Awesome.
I said, God, let me have an opportunity to share my faith, and boom, it's that way.
Well, I went to get some stuff printed for a vacation Bible school.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get the standpoint. We were going to Coeur d'Alene, so I went to the office guy. And this lady was standing nearby me, and she said, I just feel so strange. Have they got it on now?
Yeah.
So strange going to the store on Sunday. But I go to church on Saturday night. I didn't know she was Catholic because the Catholics meet on Saturday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Or what? But I said, well, I go to church on Saturday too. He said, you do? He said, yeah. And so we talked a little bit, and then when I got ready to leave, I gave her a couple of glove tracts. And while I was paying, she was looking through them, and she came and said, you're subdevilish, right? I said, yeah, I am. She said, I believe a lot of what it says in these glove tracts, that Jesus is coming soon, and we need to be ready. And we just had the best talk.
Wow.
And I told her, I said, we believe that God has faithful people in every church.
Mm.
And I said, and some of them are just kindred spirits, and you are one of those. And she said, you betcha. We just had a little, it was just a God thing. And there's a question in my mind that I did not get it done in Sandpoint because he wanted me to go to office max. And he's just like, who knows?
Divine inconveniences.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I think it's a beautiful way that you establish some common ground in spiritual camaraderie.
Yeah, she just
It works with a lot of people around here. I accidentally gave a copy of Great Controversies to a friend of mine. I didn't realize she was Catholic at this
oh
point.
my.
And I thought about it later, and she's like, yeah, I'm Catholic, and I just kind of went, oh, oops.
You're in for
I was
a ride.
gonna give her like Steps to Christ, or just like one of those, but the only thing I had in my truck was Great Controversies. So I'm like, well, this is kind of a history of the world type.
Well, a lot of
Christianity
Catholics
type
have
thing. And it was
converted
like,
from that book.
yeah, she said it's a little hard to read. I shouldn't say she
It's
wasn't reading it, but she said it was a little hard to read. I don't know
It's
exactly
some dense
what she meant.
reading for sure.
I didn't know exactly what she meant by that. I don't know if it was hard to
Could be many
hear
things.
or if it was just
Once you got
the
to
language was
we're live.
Yeah.
Hello, anyone who's watching live. My name is Pastor Austin Greer, and I have the privilege to join the Clark Fork Church this evening. And it's a privilege to see the beauty here and the beauty in each of you, the way I've seen you this year in just a short time you've shared. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet tonight. James told me that he shared a sermon that I had preached in January in Fresno. He shared it with the church, and I don't know how many people saw that, but that was what I was intending on summarizing tonight. But I did extra study for this one, so I'll share with you some of the new stuff, if you had happened to see it already. But why don't we pray, and we'll take some time with the Lord and His Word. Father in heaven, God, I want to thank you so much for loving this church and loving the community through them. It's a privilege that we get to be receivers of your love and givers. We ask that as we spend time in your word, that your Spirit would give us the ability to see what you see in it, to hear your voice speaking to us tonight. Because without your Spirit, Lord, we will not understand, and we will not have open hearts. But we do, we want that. So we thank you, God, for being here with us and for inviting us into this moment. In Jesus' name we pray. Okay. So today we're going to be jumping into Exodus 19 and answering the question, how do you prepare for God to do new things in your life? How do you prepare for God to do new things in your life? As you're turning there, I just want to ask a simple question. What makes you feel like you belong? What over your life has made you feel like you belong somewhere? Think about that one.
Yeah, it's a wife.
A wife has made you feel
Aw.
belonging.
That's the only reason I'm here. I married her. Hadn't set foot in Montana or Idaho till 2 weeks before I married her.
Wow.
Was it 2 weeks?
No.
A month.
So you felt belonging in this love-struck marriage here.
Huh?
Beautiful. Anyone else? How have you felt belonging in a place? Whether it's a friend.
I feel like I belong in the food bank.
Okay, tell me more. What made you feel that way?
It's just, I've met so many people, my whole attitude has changed about people's circumstances, and it's like a second family.
That's
Like my
beautiful.
colleagues and then the clients. I
Wow.
feel like they're a second family to me.
That's really beautiful. I'm
Yeah.
glad that's been your experience.
And I didn't want to do it at first, because I live 35 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
But guilt made me join him, and it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I think the food bank has done more for me than I've done for the clients. I really do.
Ministry does that often.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Is there one more person that can share? How have you felt belonging in a place?
When we came here, how many years ago now, 53 years or so, and couldn't find a job. I came prepared to run an excursion boat. I had the boat all made and
Mm-hmm.
all of the galleries, and total failure. So I just opened a shop, do anything for anybody, and wound up to be a motorcycle shop, which turned out to be the oldest motorcycle shop in the whole Northwest here
Wow.
for 50 some odd years.
Mm-hmm.
And I belonged there, made friends with 1,000 people.
Wow.
And they knew where I stood because I had a big Ten Commandment engraving
Mm-hmm.
over the desk with the Sabbath cut out, and then
Mhm.
the trash can underneath it.
That's attention grabbing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Well, belonging makes up a lot of our experience in life. Eric was telling me about the story of Post Falls on our way up, and that Post started a lumber mill up there, and the city kind of grew around that. But I don't believe people felt like they belonged just because they worked around each other, just because they happened to haul lumber. I think belonging as you've shared in your experiences, is a little deeper than that. It's actual connections you share with people. You can live 30 years around someone and maybe never feel like you belong because you never actually shared a connection with them. They never opened their hearts to you, or you never opened your hearts to them. And it's on the point of belonging that Jesus understands our need. It's a really highlighted theme in the book of Exodus, actually. In a story of change and redemption and hope, belonging was Jesus' whole point in bringing Israel along in this journey. So I'll take you to Exodus 19 to show you how belonging was Jesus' whole point. His whole point. And if anyone was to miss this point, you'd miss the entire thing God was trying to do in their life. So Exodus 19 and verse 4, I'll give you kind of the background. At this point, Israel had been slaves for 400 years, but through miraculous divine providence, God brought them out. He had delivered them from Egypt, from their slave masters. He had split the Red Sea. He had provided food and water when there was none in the wilderness. Testing. Okay, that'll probably help the live audience. Hi again. I'm Pastor Austin Greer. If you're still around, I admire your patience. Jesus had done amazing miracles already. He had even aided Israel in fighting off a huge army that attacked them in the wilderness. And so now they have made their way to Mount Sinai, and they're camping here, and God is about to do something new. And it's not another miracle. It's actually about belonging to Him. So we come to verse 4, and he's telling Moses what message he's to give Israel to prepare for this next phase of their spiritual walk with Him. And it says, "You yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now then, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be my own possession." Some translations say treasured possessions, and that's more in line with what the Hebrew is getting at. Treasured possessions. Lost my place here. "For all the earth is mine. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the sons or children of Israel." Now you read this through a couple times. God is coming to him. Think of this, the most powerful being in the entire world is coming to seek relationship with people. And it's not on the basis of his power, his authority. He's not saying, because I'm God, you have to bow before me and follow me. He's coming and saying, hey, look at what I've shown you about myself. I delivered you from Egypt. Look what I did. I brought you to me. I brought you to me. And it's on that point he invites him into a relationship. It's not on any other aspect of life. And he says, "If you obey my voice, keep my covenant, you shall be my own possession," treasured possession, "and for all the earth is mine." Now, in the Hebrew, there is a similar phrase between saying my treasured possession and that all the earth is mine, creating a comparison between the two of ownership. Now, obviously, the earth had no choice in deciding whether it was going to belong to God or not, right? But he's coming to the people of Israel and saying, you have a choice to be my treasured possession or not. That won't change how much I treasure you, but you get to choose if you're going to be that with me, to me. And this language of ownership is less about a power play and a telling them what to do and how to be, and it's more about telling them an ownership for their being. As a caretaker. The earth is God's, but he's not just like a tyrant. He's not a dictator. He's not a manager. He's a father. He's a brother. He's a savior. And this is the way he came to his people. And so this invitation to the covenant is followed by a really long section about Israel consecrating themselves. But we're going to focus on a single verse right before that. And that is verse 8. So Moses told this message to them, this invitation. And it reads, "All the people answered together and said, 'All that the Lord has spoken, we will do.' And Moses brought back the words of the people to the Lord. He said, 'All that you've spoken, we will do.'" And the next step is God's like, "Okay, that's good, but you're not ready yet." He says, "We need a time to prepare for a moment for you to actually accept this into your heart." I mean, who has ever had a successful relationship based off of a single moment of, "Hey, I like you, here's a ring"? There's always a wooing time, a time to go through hard issues together, right? And that's when you really know, like, this person has my back. Like, this is the kind of person I want to be with for the rest of my life. And this was God saying, "Okay, hold your horses. Let's take a moment together." And so he tells them to do a few things. Clean their clothes, which is a wonder to accomplish in the wilderness because there were no rivers in this place. So Spirit of Prophecy tells us God struck the mountain and created a river for all these thousands of people to wash their clothes. He told them to abstain from matrimonial intimacy. And all these things were intended to enhance their focus on his voice and understanding his word. And on the third day, they all gather on the mountain, and God is in this cloud. And Moses speaks to him, and God doesn't answer with words. He answers with thunder and lightning. Now, that doesn't sound like a very strong communicating tool, thunder and lightning. But he wasn't trying to communicate knowledge, like just ideas. He was trying to communicate a relationship dynamic. One of the other things he told Moses to tell the people is, don't let anyone touch the mountain, because if you touch it, you're going to have to kill them. And don't even touch the people who touch the mountain. Don't even let animals touch the mountain. Don't let them try to break through these barriers and come and see me on the mountain. Because he's trying to help them understand, like, he's not just a human guy walking around in a cloud with thunder and lightning. He is the creator, the origin of everything that exists. He's big. He's different. And very different than the gods of Egypt. And the response of Israel is terror. Terror. They were terrified. Their knees were knocking at seeing God. Now that might spring a question mark in your mind. Why are they terrified of God? If God is the most loving being in the world. Well, if you look at other passages in Scripture, there is a reaction in humanity to holiness and perfection. And it gets scared because we have so much imperfection in us. We have things we don't want anyone to know about. We have disappointments. And before a perfect God, it shakes. But God didn't bring them there to rail them on all the points where their convictions aren't aligned with their life. He brought them there to simply be with him and be in this relationship, reciprocal relationship of love and respect. And that was a hard lesson for them to learn, because the next 40 years, they struggled just like we do in trusting God with their needs, physical needs, spiritual needs, the unknown. They struggled. But God was pursuing them and being present. Now, the Apostle Paul commentates on this chapter. So we're going to start to kind of close this time out in the book of Hebrews. Hebrews 8. God is wanting to enhance our ability to focus on his voice, hear his voice, and understand his word. And preparing ourselves is a way of doing that, and it gets us ready for God to do new things in our lives. I'm going to start in Hebrews 8. A covenant was given to Israel, and Paul calls it something that sounds rather scandalous. He calls this covenant old and faulty. He called it old and faulty. But it wasn't because God was old and faulty. No. It was because the way the people received this covenant was faulty. And Paul introduces a new covenant, which isn't different. It's just a new, clear expression of the old covenant. And the clearer expression comes through the life and death of Jesus Christ. And so he turns our attention away from ourselves and to Jesus in chapter 8. And then this new covenant shows how our acceptance into relationship with God is supposed to be based on a promise that's unshakable. Israel's promise was their own. They said, we'll be in the covenant because we'll do everything you said. But Paul points out that we need a better promise because the truth is we make mistakes. We fall short. And so we'll jump into Hebrews 10. Sorry about that. Hebrews 10, verse 16. This new covenant approach is about trusting in God. Trusting in God. In the old covenant, they wanted to even go back to Egypt because they had a predictable life there. It was comfortable. They had the meat and the seasoning. But Jesus was inviting them into something richer, something where they'd actually be alive and free. And verse 16 is a pivotal verse that helps us understand how we are to experience this in the covenant when we make our own mistakes. And here it is. And this is the covenant that I will make with them. After those days, says the Lord, I will put my laws upon their heart, and upon their mind I will write them. I will put my laws in their heart. I will write it on them. This transformation that allows us to be more open to God, even more open to others, it's not motivated by the old covenant way of saying we're going to do all the list of things, and then we will have arrived in this holistic approach to life that allows us to experience God and what He planned for us. No, because we can never do enough. I mean, especially in our church, we have so much blessed truth, right? So much knowledge. How can we ever live up to it all? We can't. But the point is choosing to belong to God and obeying what He is telling us in the moment. And He doesn't blast us with all the truth there is to know every moment. He says, you're going to change if you open your heart, if you let me give you a new desire, and then you work with that desire. Spirit of Prophecy says in Steps to Christ that we can have an outward look that is clean and shiny and refined and education, but inwardly be broken. And what we need is a power working from within. And so she says, the grace of God alone can awaken the lifeless faculties of the soul and give it a desire for God and holiness. And I don't know about you, but that was one of the most encouraging things I've read in my life. That when I see a lack in myself, I don't kick the ground and be disappointed in myself for not wanting holy things more. No, that's naturally who I am. I go to Jesus, and He provides. He provides, which is the primary point of this whole book in Exodus. And so instead of saying, we're going to do all that the Lord commands, the old covenant way, we instead respond by declaring the promise of Hebrews 10:16. I will be in this covenant. I have a right to be in here because God has faithfully done His part in my life. That is what has allowed me to be here confidently and with joy and peace. And this radically impacts how we prepare ourselves for God to do new things in our lives. If we believe that we need to do more, then we'll spin our tires, doing all sorts of ministry things, and I'm just speaking from my own experience, ministry and Bible study, and find ourselves in the same place in our heart and our mind with God. So the perspective is switched and says, just focus on claiming my faithfulness to do this work in you. And when I believe that, man, my hope soars. I feel at peace because now the weight of success is not on my shoulders. It is a promise of something he'll fulfill in me, and I'm open. I want it. And it's in that place I'm getting prepared for God to do something new. Because you can do a lot of good things and never be open to God's movings, right? And when we fall, we don't have to feel abandoned by God. Because in Hebrews 10 and 9, we're promised that our salvation, as well as this is going to sound crazy, our perfection comes from the blood of Jesus Christ. In Hebrews 10:10. I'm going to read that here. By this will we have been sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ, once for all. Sanctified. It's a cleansing of our hearts, right? Well, it's also a perfecting of our record in heaven. And he's saying here, we have been perfected by one sacrifice. Then we come, I'm going to back us up into verse 9 for the context of this verse. Then he said, behold, I have come to do thy will. You know who's speaking here? Jesus. I have come to do thy will. He takes away the first in order to establish the second. What's he talking about here? You know what Israel said? It will come to do everything you commanded. Now we see Jesus saying that. I'm going to come and do all that you command, God. And so he does away with this old covenant thinking of do more, become holy, and he replaces it with I will do all that you've been called to do, and that will allow me to do something in you that you never could have done yourself. You've been perfected. And so anyone's admittance into the covenant is not based on how much they do or know. It's based on where they've set themselves in belonging to Jesus. So when God called them to consecrate themselves, to prepare for this moment at Sinai, he was saying, let yourselves belong to me. That's the most boiled down meaning of consecrate. Maybe a boiled down meaning of sanctify. It's to let yourself belong to God. But there are other things we let ourselves belong to sometimes. It could be fear. It could be pride. It could be anxiety. It could be anger, resentment, bitterness, addictions. And we go to those things because we're not going to God for what we truly need in us. And it gets us by. Gets humanity by. But Jesus has invited us to him to find all that we need in him. And if we've been in these belonging to the slavery of these things for a while, it's going to take some preparation time, maybe just a couple days, to sit with God, with the Word, in prayer, thinking of him, maybe fasting, to just hear his voice. What are you thinking of, God, right now? What do you need me to think about? Where do I turn now? And in those moments, God will speak to you, and he will enrich your understanding of him and bring you into that preparation for what he wants to do. So, according to verses 9 and 10, we come into the covenant from a position that our salvation's already established. It's certain. I am saved. And it's from there that we get ready for God to do new things. We have to know he's already done the work. And it's that point that we have to know God has already done this work, and he is going to do it in us. That point he emphasized at the very beginning of this deep spiritual journey with Israel. He said, you saw for yourself what I did to the Egyptians. You saw that I brought you to myself on eagle's wings. On the point of what you saw me do for you, obey me. They'll quickly realize, oh, we can't do it perfectly. Remember, you saw what I did to the Egyptians. I brought you to myself on eagle's wings. Obey me. Oh, but I keep getting frustrated at my friend. Or this. You saw what I did before in the past. I brought you to myself. Let's keep walking. You're my treasured possession. And I think it's beautiful that even though Israel struggled with holding on to this commitment to them, to God, his treasuring them didn't change. Like, he didn't judge their decision. He didn't say, hey, this decision's not deep enough. It's not going to last 40 years. He accepted the decision they made that day, and they were brought into a beautiful experience. And then, as life goes, God walked them one step at a time. It's from a place of trusting God to take care of everything that we need to walk with him so that we cannot fail as long as we depend on him. Because God's faithfulness is the promise that Israel could have relied on, but they chose self-dependence. So they kind of freaked out every time they got into a hard spot. But I think it's a truth that's been experienced by believers throughout all human history. Anyone who cries out to the Lord is not left alone. Anyone who calls to him for aid is satisfied and fulfilled. Maybe not in the way they hoped, but the Lord is never slack with his promise. And I know in my life, he has brought peace that I could not bring. But at the same time, he said, Austin, you got to have courage too. I can't give you courage. That's a choice for yourself. Like with Joshua, Joshua 1:9, fear not, for I'm with you. Be of good courage. Be strong and courageous. God can give us peace, but we do need to choose to be courageous. And so I leave this final thought with you, that if you want to prepare for God to do new things in your life, you feel like your walk with him maybe has gotten it feels routine. That may not be a bad thing. I mean, Moses was a shepherd for 40 years, and I don't think anyone would have chosen that. And it's a pretty routine life. But if you want to see more, and God is drawing you into more, set aside a time, maybe a weekend, to say, God, tell me, how can I prepare for this? Do I need to stop watching this TV show? Do I need to stop listening to this kind of music? Do I need to maybe do a little less yard work and take some more time with you? What can I do to prepare and open my ears and let you open my mind? Because when we do this preparation, amazing things happen. Thieves on crosses give their lives to the one on the cross next to them. Greedy tax collectors like Zacchaeus give almost everything away back to the people he stole from, because you realize, oh, I belong to the God of the universe. I have all that I could ever need. Okay, I don't need this. I'll give it back, and then some. These are the kind of things that happen when you let that preparation, you spend that time with God, and you set aside a time and say, God, let's go there. Take me there. So just always keep in our minds that the whole focus of our Christian walk is to belong. And so if we're going to, like Israel did to idols, belonging to idols for their safety, or they went to other countries for protection to belong to those countries, they all were disappointed. But if ever they went to God and remembered, I belong to the Creator, I belong to the God who took my ancestors on eagle's wings out of a 400-year slavery, what can he do in my life? If I belong to him, if I'm his treasured possession, wow, I better strap up my shoes and get ready, because this is going to be a ride. Everything changes when we just think about how much we belong to Jesus. And as a church community, when we do that, our hearts will open way wide to the community, anybody in the community, and they'll find belonging with us. And then we get to share the amazing things we've discovered with them. So,
By the way, if there's a vote, I'm voting for you.
Well, can we pray briefly together before you folks head home? And we'll pray for your travels. Lord, thank you so much for the thoughts that Austin has shared with us tonight. To realize the kind of price you would pay and the passion that you have for each of us. I pray that as we discuss and grow together tonight, that you'll be with this meeting. Be with these good folks as they travel home, and thank you for their time as well. And as we turn toward what you call us to do in this world, help us to do it from the position knowing that you've already bought and paid for us. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you, Austin.
Yeah. Do I stay up here? Or?
Yeah, please stay right on up here with me, and
Okay.
we'll stand rather than sit, and that way your answers will be short and their questions will be short. Is that the way that works? No.
The live stream, repeat the question.
We'll be repeating the questions. I'm going to open up the floor here, but I think I might do that by giving Austin just a chance to talk just a little bit to the group about where you grew up. We heard a little bit of that, but maybe not everybody heard it, and why you are passionate about pastoral ministry.
Okay.
So I'll kind of kick that off, and then I'll seek from questions from some of you.
Yeah. So I grew up in Fresno, California, and grew up going to Fresno Central SDA Church since I was a baby. And I was dedicated in the little town church of Sanger, California. And grew up going to Adventist Academy, 1st to 12th grade. I was too antsy in kindergarten, so my mom was like, okay, we'll let him have a little more fun. Went very active in church. My mom is kind of an everything person, and so we were at Vespers, we were at Pathfinders, outreach events, of course Sabbath school and church every Saturday. And that was very instilled in my heart to be invested and involved in the church. I graduated from Academy and went to Walla Walla University, where I pursued a theology degree and a minor in film and television. I had grown up going to summer camp, and they had a video camp one summer, and so I gave it a shot, and I was really interested in it. Kind of stuck with me. Walla Walla was a marvelous time where God grew me with wonderful friends, and I was involved in wonderful ministry. One was called His Kids in Action, where we picked up kids from a local neighborhood and brought them to the church down the street from the penitentiary, and we put on a VBS every Saturday. And it was like a little family. It was beautiful to see what God did for these kids, especially considering when I came in, all the staff basically just about graduated, and there was like 2 kids left, when it had used to be like 40. And so by God's grace, a team, my friend and I went for it, we cared for the kids, and a team grew, and the numbers grew, and it was beautiful. And so that's a little bit about myself. Maybe a couple hobbies.
Sure.
I like playing guitar, I like writing music, Christian music. And I like rock climbing. Just got some new rock climbing shoes and got some ropes. So I'm hoping if this ends up being my home, I hope I find some areas around here to climb. Good. And I skateboard as well. Like to ski and snowboard as well. So it's a little bit about me. And then my pastoral calling, junior year in high school, I started thinking about pastoral ministry and less about nursing, like my mom suggested. She's a nurse practitioner, and she was fine with that. And by senior year, I was set. I wanted to be a pastor, and it's because through my experience and as being ministered to as a teen, and then ministering to my peers in high school, I liked helping people find direction and get connected with resources that help them along, because that's what was given to me, and it was really life-changing. And God has used me in that capacity. I feel like there's no greater way for me to impact the world than through helping them with their heart and their mind in the spiritual things, because everything changes with that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Do you have questions for Austin?
Yeah, I have one. how do you feel, being a young man, how do you feel taking on the responsibility to lead a church family to the heavenly kingdom?
Yeah.
Well, let's repeat that
Oh.
for the camera.
Yeah, the question is, how do I feel as a young man entering a position to lead the heavenly family to Canaan, to heavenly Canaan, not the Middle East Canaan. I probably feel a bit like Timothy in the Bible. I see my shortcomings, and I see the areas I need to improve, and I have to remind myself that God has brings me to places for His purpose, and He knew ahead of time everything that would happen. And I trust He just says, hold fast to the faith that I started you with. So yeah, there's some trepidation because it's definitely a high calling. In that trepidation, I find peace and confidence in God, and as well as a strong circle of mentors who've invested in me in my life, and a very encouraging group of friends scattered around America.
How did you get interested in this part of the country?
How did I get interested in this part of the country? Well, I think this part of the country got interested in me first. I was a senior at Walla Walla, and 3 conferences came to interview us in the fall, and Upper Columbia got first pick, and so they asked a buddy of mine and myself if we'd pastor here. And I called my home conference in California just because I have a heart for them, and I wanted to kind of give them a nod, but there was nothing available. So I accepted the call, and then I got put in Yakima about 9 months later.
I can tell you from the conference's perspective, we're grateful his conference didn't offer him a job.
I am too. God put me in Yakima for a very distinct purpose. It was beautiful.
Someone else?
We have struggled to try to reach the community here.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a poor. I don't know, how would you describe this community, Bonnie? Kind of a poor,
Closed.
closed-minded.
Not closed-minded, just closed. They don't want they have their faith that they've always had, and they're not interested in changing any of that. They're just, no.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you is, a little town like this and little church, how would you lead us in evangelism?
Mm-hmm.
You can repeat that?
Yeah, so the question is, how would I lead this church in evangelism in a small town like this, where there's a lot of people who are firm in their faiths and their denominational affiliations?
Or non-denominational.
Or none. None.
Or anything to do with it.
Yeah, in the way God has built up my ministry tool belt has been in the context of relationships and creating environments for relationships to grow with a spiritual focus. One of these was a youth program that'd be 3 weeks. I know it sounds like a lot, but it was a blast. Where we had a spiritual group of young adults lead a group of about 25 to 35 teenagers. And it's in this environment where we do a week of backpacking with deep worship around the fire and fun team-building activities that were challenging to grow us closer, that my mind was freed from distractions to be with God. And around a bunch of spiritual friends, it was even more clear. And so the consequence of those devoted young adults being there for me was they reached out to me after that. And they have been like a boon in my faith since then. And so there the relationship was key, as well as an environment to be around spiritual people. A fun environment, a nice environment, nature. The second way I'd say is what I learned from this kids program during my time in Walla Walla is when you reach the kids, the parents are going to love you. And when they know that their kids are taken care of and accepted, their heart's open to you in a special way. So we had some nice connections with family. Although as busy college students, we only had so much time to give, so we focused on the kids. And that ministry was very dependent on relationship. Like, the kids came because they loved us. We also had fun skits. We made our own little skits for Bible stories and Bible lessons. So the thing that is always on my mind is how are they going to feel loved on? How are they going to feel heard, understood? And how can I utilize what I know of them to support them? I would love to take part in your food bank ministry. I mean, you guys have a lot of connections there already. People who know you care, and just the next step is just making friends, and one thing leads to the next, and you're visiting their home, or maybe they come over to your home for dinner. And of course, I don't know this demographic as well as you, but there's wonderful things that happen when those relationships get built.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Thank you. Someone else?
Well, I like what you said about the kids, but I'm gonna tell you, you got a couple tough 12-year-olds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They have definitely, let's say, just been through it.
Mm-hmm.
Not through the church either.
Yeah.
They have been through a tough life.
Yeah. No. Well, serving kids who have had tough lives. That was our demographic in Walla Walla. Some of the kids had parents in the penitentiary. Their family was connected to gang activity in the area. It was a low-income neighborhood, and so the kids just kind of ran around all the neighborhood, all the streets, and
That's pretty much all summer here.
yeah. No, that was our demographic, and they loved that we just played with them. It was kind of a starter, and any of the kids that were difficult, I usually was just patient with them. We had our firm boundary of like, this is the program we have, but we tried to be gentle but firm with the kids, and I think that helped for most of them.
I like what you said, you made skits with them. I think
Oh,
that
yeah.
would be
It's too much fun.
Someone else?
So you quoted Ellen White a couple times. Do you feel like she's 100% inspired, partially inspired?
I'll repeat the question.
Yeah. What percentage do I believe Ellen White is inspired is the question. I believe God had given her messages for our denomination and for our denomination to share with the world around. And I think we've been doing a decent job of that lately with Glow with co-porting and whatnot. Yeah, I believe she's 100% inspired. I wouldn't say her shopping list is inspired, but I would say the things that the Lord was leading her in came from a special place of insight in the Word. And I admire her life, because I know in testimonies to the church, she shares quite a rocky road experience as a kid, with a lot of fear and anxiety, spiritual fear, and how Jesus brought her through that. And so I'm in awe of the way she writes about Jesus, and how studious she was too. Like with her books, she would draw upon other commentaries from academics from other denominations, and take insights from there. And I'm sure she prayed over everything in the Spirit, and her angel guided her in these processes. So, sorry if that was more of an answer than I needed to give.
So I'm just telling you a little bit about myself here.
Please
So
do.
I am a welder, and
Amazing.
as long as I'm doing my work in welding, I can sit there and listen to whatever I want. So generally my day, typically, I listen to a lot of sermons. I have my favorite guys, and on 380 and stuff. But I always try to listen to some current event things, and I want to know how you feel about the current events going on in the world.
Well, transparently,
Summarize that.
to summarize, how do I relate to the current events in the world? There's a lot of them.
I know.
There's a lot going on currently. I have tended to put a lot more time and thought into the life I'm living, and the community I'm in, than the political climate or the things that are going on in DC. And I have plans to be more red, but I try to stay more aware of what's going on, like especially like natural disasters and big problems going on in different parts of the world. I sponsor a kid in the Congo through Compassion International, so I like to be aware of different places that might need some prayer. And of course, you can't avoid what's going on in the news. So you have plenty to pray about there for our leaders. And, you know, Paul says pray for those in authority. So I pray. And, you know, there's a lot of opinions out there. There's a lot of ideas. And I think everyone's trying to find the best way to live their lives. And in a lot of the world, there's a lot of arguing and animosity over different views. And I find that I do my best as well.
Just wonder.
Yeah. Thank you, Jamie.
Good question. Pastor Jason would come here once a month
Mm-hmm.
on Sabbath. You know, Bonners Ferry is so much bigger than, you know, he felt that he had to devote more time there than here, and it's either 2 times here a month or 1 time here a month. You know, there's nothing in between.
Every other pastor we had, maybe one more before him, came twice a month, all through the years.
Mm-hmm.
They split their Sabbaths, you know, but I guess the conference told them that since Bonners Ferry was a stronger church, they should put their time there. So,
You know, and then he would come here every Wednesday
Mm-hmm.
for food bank day, and a Bible study, prayer meeting. So, you have any feel for what you would be able to devote to this congregation?
Yeah. Do I have a feel for how I can balance my time between Clark Fork congregation and the Bonners Ferry congregation? I think I'll need a little time to settle in. However, I want to go where you guys are working for the community. I want to be supporting you in that as best I can. Wherever God is working, I want to be someone who is a voice of encouragement and a hand to work. So I'll be praying over the time division, and there's only so much of me, and that's okay because we have a Savior who's all over the place. But no, I already feel very excited to have met you and hear what's going on in your guys' church, and if this ends up being my area, I would be very excited to come over here often to join.
Well, we certainly need help.
Absolutely.
Yes.
No.
so are you waiting to see if the churches vote to have you come? Or are you wanting to come and hoping that they'll vote for you to come?
Truthfully,
How do you summarize that question?
am I waiting for a yes vote or waiting to like everybody enough? No, I'm waiting for just to know what the churches want. God had spoke to Eric and Rodney Mills and Elder Jameson, and they put on their heart to consider me for this area, and I honor that and I respect that. And God's never been wrong, so just waiting on y'all.
Another question, what do you feel seminary did for you?
Oh, you know,
Summarize that for the camera.
what did seminary at Andrews University do for me? It provided me a place to take a lot more initiative over my educational experience. Master's programs are not spoon-feeding programs. There's a lot less, like undergrad, I feel like there was a lot more practical application given and a lot more conclusions and insights. Seminary, often it was kind of like listening to an encyclopedia. So you had to put the pieces together and make something wonderful of them. Not all professors are like that. And so it was an environment for me to develop my methods for learning myself, to become more inquisitive. If I felt like a class was reviewing things I've already learned in undergrad, I would just be like, okay, how can I ask questions to these very experienced and knowledgeable people and arrive at a educational experience for myself instead of waiting for someone else to kind of do it for me. It also helped me fall in love with Hebrew. Second time around doing Hebrew, it got my heart this time. First time around in undergrad, I was like, I don't know. But this time I really enjoy it now, and I can read Hebrew with much more proficiency.
And
Greek, I tested out of Greek, so I didn't have the pleasure of having a Greek class here. So, because our Carl Koshart at Walla Walla is an excellent teacher, and it just stuck in my brain. So I studied over the summer and reviewed, and that worked out. Tested out. What else did seminary do? I think those were the primary things. It was a space for me to take ownership of my educational experience, develop inquisition. Nah,
Probably not inquisition.
not the right word. Becoming more inquisitive,
There we go.
asking better questions, and fell in love with Hebrew. So
Good. As the evening is wearing on here, I wanted to give Austin a chance to ask you also a couple of questions, if we could transition for a moment. Is that okay? Give him, and you guys can decide who gets to answer, and
Mhm.
we'll try to.
Do you want to bring the mic around?
Yeah,
Or
we
we-
might see if we can get the distance here. So
Okay.
we'll try that.
Just
But
flip it.
yeah, what? Let's get this off of here for a second, maybe.
There we go.
And so, what's your first question?
All right, first question. What are your dreams for this church and its growth in this community? Like, if things started to move and people opened up, what could you see this church looking like and becoming as a part of this community?
Who'd like to take a crack at that one? Yvonne.
Well, James and I have been praying daily for God to send missionaries here. We had one family from Sandpoint, because they were so full there, that we're going to come once a month, and then he got really bad back and has had to have surgery, and so they haven't started doing that. But just young families that they feel like there's too many people there, they can be missionaries here. And we were just praying for young people here, because we're all not so young anymore. And because we have children, and we don't really have regular Adventist children that come here anymore. We used to be quite a few young people here. This church was full back when we first started coming. And people have moved away, kids have grown up and left, and we'd just like to see this place with young people again, and that's why our interest was kind of piqued by you. AJ, I asked my son-in-law, I said, when he told us that they knew him so well, I said, well, why would they ask him to come to a church that has a church school? When he's not married, doesn't have a family, whatever. He said, because he really connects with young people. He really knows how to connect with young people, and so I guess that must be the reason. Anyway.
Anybody else want to jump in on that? Sure. Let's see if we can. Can we get it that far?
Yeah.
That's about all I've got right there.
That'll work. I would like this church to be a place where people feel safe. I want to see people, and a lot of people go, when I say this, but I really wouldn't mind seeing Harley Davidsons in the parking lot and people in this church with ink. And I know there's a lot of Adventist churches where they do not feel welcome in this area, like Sandpoint. There's a Christian Motorcycle Association up here in Spokane, and they came and did the Sandpoint Church because the church school's principal's parents belonged to the Christian Motorcycle Association. And 9 Harleys pulled up in the parking lot one morning for church. And they did the sermon. They did, the thing. And people were just like, what are we going to do? Oh, no. And you're just like, I mean, did you see the jacket? It says Christian on the back of it. They're not packing, And, it's like the first thing a lot of people notice about me here is I have a lot of ink. Well, I was raised pretty much like you. My mother was the assistant editor of Our Little Friend at Pacific Press. My father was the pressman. I was raised at the church. And we need people that have been through stuff like I've been through need to feel welcome.
Right.
And I just want this church to tell them that, because it's kind of, people don't know how to do that here. And I can't do it myself anymore because I'm not physically able to do it. So.
That's super beautiful.
But,
Yeah, not every motorcyclist is a Hell's Angel.
I have something to say about that too.
Sure.
So,
even some of them aren't really all that dangerous.
I think it would be nice if just this area right out here, if we planted a couple trees and put a couple park benches just so people would walk by and sit down and start to feel comfortable here.
So people walk along this road, or?
Yeah,
everywhere.
they walk everywhere here.
Really?
And I mean,
It's
if there
like
was
night
some place to sit and they could actually start to feel comfortable here, instead of going, oh no, there's that Seventh-day Adventist church.
That's
There
awesome.
you go.
I really like that idea.
Another question.
Okay. What do you think are some of the challenges to bringing people to Jesus in this setting?
They just don't like us.
She said they just don't like us. That could be a challenge, couldn't it?
Oh, you're a Seventh-day Adventist.
Hmm.
So they've had some bad experiences.
I think there's a heavy Masonic presence in this town. Yes. It's huge.
Okay.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that one?
I'm kind of confused about that. I don't think we've done,
Quite get there to you.
well, we haven't done anything to make people want to stay away.
No,
Right, so we just haven't reached out to get the people.
I think that, and I think there's a lot of false information about what the Adventists believe and who they are circulating. I mean, there may have been someone that had a bad experience at church or with an Adventist or something like, I don't know.
Or they go online
It's
and
been a while, yeah.
were a cult, or.
All you have to do is go online, you can hear it say about it.
And you don't even have to go online because I don't know if y'all know about the cartoon The Simpsons. They had something about the Adventist on there one day.
Yeah, we get brought up.
I mean, when they see that kind of silly stuff on TV, it's like, they go to church on Saturday is what they said on The Simpsons or
Right.
something.
They kind of peg us as weird,
Yeah,
weird folks.
You know that Satan's out to put us down, right?
yeah.
So we shouldn't be surprised. We always have a float, except last year we didn't, but we always have a float in the 4th of July parade, and we play our instruments, and we pass out glow tracks or something to everybody that we can. And,
We need to have a barbecue this year.
what was that?
We need to have a vegetarian barbecue after this year.
Anyway, yeah, she says we need to have vegetarian barbecue. We've had lunch here and invited people, but, I don't know. I think that, like she said, there's certain people that don't like us and they make it known. I don't know who they are, but
Love to know who they are.
But we have people at the food bank that do like us. The lady that runs it, her little girl came to Bible school last year, and she's ready to come again this year. She's looking forward to it, and she says she has some friends she'll probably bring too.
Awesome.
But there are nice Christian people that we are good friends with.
All right. Another question for them.
Yeah. What are you most proud of about your church family?
We're still here.
It's just said that we're still here. And that is not a bad thing to be proud of.
After 47 years I've been coming here. Of course, we were gone every winter for 40 years.
Well, I actually helped build this church, so, yeah. I came out with my dad, my mom, and I made sandwiches.
So does a beam around here somewhere have your name on it?
Not that I know of, unless, there was a fire, but I don't think so.
Anyone else? What are you most proud of?
My grandpa helped build it. Their parents.
So, multi-generational investment in this particular church. That's good.
I'm kind of the new guy here, but I'm pretty proud of this food bank. We kind of have to suffer to a little bit to share that space and all the junk that comes here, and not people,
We have a
but
Dorcas too, not just
Dorcas
food
and
bank.
yeah. And so we service a lot of people. If Susie was here, she could tell us how many, but a lot of people.
I think it's 50 families a week, average probably. And we give out 100 food boxes at Christmas and Thanksgiving and, yeah.
And these people aren't wealthy enough to have Harleys. They drive up in their golf carts and riding
these
lawnmowers and
If they have Harleys, they probably are not poor enough to come to the food bank. You can't earn over X amount of money for.
Well, most of the ones that have had one around here have had it for a while.
They got in on the ground floor. Another question for them.
Yeah. What is it about this church that keeps you coming?
Good question.
Keeps you here.
Yeah, for the camera's sake, they're all pointing at each other. And if you're listening on camera, you're probably pointing here as well. So it's y'all, the relationships you have, right?
I think she's referring to her grandchildren, right?
Well, yeah, and her too.
Okay.
So the grandchildren.
Yeah.
And her children.
Well,
Anyone else?
My truck broke, and I literally at my work in Sandpoint, Jeff showed up and fixed my truck. It was like, I didn't call him and say my truck, I just mentioned my truck was broken and Jeff showed up and fixed my truck.
Wow. So
Okay,
Praise
that's
God.
pretty cool.
good.
That's kind of the thing that keeps you coming back when people.
You share needs, and your family meets those needs. Neat. Anyone else?
Yeah, I could easily go to Chalk Creek, it's only 8 miles away. I got 30 miles to here, because I can't abandon these people, I love them too much.
That is neat to hear.
And my son goes to Chalk Creek, he needs the head elder there.
You come here for the church family, even though you have biological family at another church. Very good.
How do you understand God's picture for youth being a part of the church, the life of the church? How would you see God wanting youth to be involved if there were like 5 kids here, like teenagers?
Who wants to?
Occasionally, we have 5 teenagers here. Occasionally, we do have 5 teenagers here, and it gets kind of hectic, but I think we all deal with it pretty good, and we're just trying to help them. And there's more of us trying to help them than there is them most of the time.
That's beautiful.
Well, and it's kind of like when the kids show up, like you saw the little boy that came in to play with the twins tonight. He lives next door. He doesn't go to church here. You know, kids can't not mingle, and
That's right.
you can't shut their mouth if they got something to say. So, you know.
Anyone else? Where do you see kids fitting in the and involved in this church?
Well, the 12-year-olds ran the live stream last couple of weeks.
That's what I was gonna say.
the
They've
212.
been working on that.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Any other thoughts?
It was encouraging to hear Emmett pray for one of his schoolmates. I mean, I thought that was pretty special.
So being willing to and able to share their needs and their concerns.
That's good. So that was during one of the services that he prayed? Awesome. How old is Emmett?
12.
12, okay. Okay. Now, if here's maybe narrowing the question a little more. If there was a kid who was amped to get involved, and he's in love with Jesus, and he's like, I don't know what to do, but I want to help. I want to help God's people. I want to share Jesus. Where would you be excited to put him or her?
So I have something to say about that. First of all, I think it's gonna be really, 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 really hard to find that type of kid in Clark Fork who just jumps out and says, I love Jesus. Because they're just not raised that way anymore.
And that's why we're praying for missionaries.
Yes, I mean, it is so hard for me to get my grandkids to come to church. I mean, they live with me, so they know that's what we're doing now. But I mean, it's still hard.
Yeah.
And when their friends come, I try really hard to help them and encourage them to sit still for an hour. But you can ask everybody, it gets kind of loud and rowdy, and none of them jump up and say, I just love Jesus.
Not there yet.
No, but they do say, can we go yet?
Yeah.
Do you want to come?
No, can we leave?
I'm just being honest.
Honest is the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah. So coming out here, if I end up coming out here, I don't have any family out here. Apparently I have some friends and new friends. But what has God put on your heart over the years to support your pastors?
Anyone who wants to tackle that one?
Well, if you move to Clark Fork, we'll help you move in.
Look out, we got bribery already on the table.
We probably have a place, right, somewhere around here.
Search and Rescue High Eagle Team 5 years. I know where you can climb and where you can't.
I'd love to take you climbing and hiking. I'm not really good at climbing, but I love hiking. And the kids do too.
Wouldn't a house be a lot cheaper here in Clark Fork than Bonners Ferry?
So you've got a real estate agent already working for you if you're willing to move to Clark Fork. Anyone else? How have you kind of? That's awesome. Any other questions? Oh, Yvonne, sorry.
Him asking questions, it's me. Do you believe in visiting your parishioners?
Oh, do I ever? Is water wet? Oh, actually, that is kind of it's a controversial question. Yeah. I love visiting. No, everyone. I actually.
Blueberry farm, that's why she's asking.
You like picking blueberries while you visit?
I'll pick.
Was that part of the question?
I'll pick thorns if it gets me around people. No, I was a hospital chaplain this last fall in Kalamazoo, Michigan. It was a level 1 trauma center, so we saw all sorts of people coming through. And I got my first CPE chaplaincy credit. So that's only visiting, and I was very blessed. And yeah.
I can introduce you to a guy,
Good.
Sandpoint Church, that does the chaplaincy for the prison ministry.
Introduction for chaplaincy and prison ministries in Sandpoint. Good. Any other questions for them?
I think that's about it.
All right.
You might be better. You might be better received here if you were married.
Okay, we went from trying to get him a house in Clark Fork to trying to get him married and a house in Clark Fork. That is serious manipulation going on right there.
Real progressive.
But we're very clear that it's transparent and it's above board. There's nothing under the table. It's all straight up.
Actually, we have one more.
It got him all the way over.
What do you guys like to do for fun together? What do you guys like to do to enjoy your time with each other?
We really have very little social life here. We used to, but everybody's gotten older. They don't want to leave home. They don't want to be out after dark, especially in the winter. So we really don't have much social life. Wouldn't you guys agree? We always have potluck every Sabbath, so that's pretty much it. Otherwise, we don't.
I like to go hiking with your mom.
So there's hiking with Yvonne.
Yeah. And Jake.
Good. A little hiking and outdoor activity then. Good.
Yeah, we love Sabbath and hiking.
All right.
As far as a church getting together, we don't really that much.
Well, folks, I'm going to bring this to a close here. And we're going to take a couple more minutes as a congregation. I'm going to invite Kendra and Austin to go ahead and step outside. If you guys, here's my keys. Come back and get me if you leave. But I wanted to just take a moment, give you guys a chance to talk amongst yourselves. And then what I'll be doing tomorrow is I'll be giving Bonners Ferry, they'll be having the same experience. Yeah, I think we can go ahead and wrap that off. And what I'll be doing is inviting them at the end of that to each kind of express their